The alien fleet floated in silence. Their ships spread like cold shadows across the dark edge of the system. For many cycles, they had watched humanity rise from a small and reckless species to a dangerous presence among the stars. At first, humans were loud and clumsy, rushing into space with fragile machines and primitive weapons. But over time, their growth had been unnerving. They built colonies, mined worlds, and designed ships faster and stronger than any outsider had expected. Even so, the aliens believed they understood the limits of human power. They had measured their fleets, studied their technology, and calculated their tactics. Humans were strong, yes, but not unstoppable. At least that was the belief until the day the warship appeared. The vessel came without warning. It drifted into view near the orbit of a dying star, its surface dark and scarred as if it had survived countless battles. At first sight, it looked like a standard human warship, larger than most but still familiar in shape and form. Its hull was covered in layers of armor, its towers rising like jagged teeth against the glow of the star behind it. To the aliens, it seemed like another machine of war. Nothing more. But then the scans began. From the lead alien cruiser, beams of energy swept across the human vessel, mapping its structure, searching for weaknesses. The crew expected to see the usual readings: engine cores, weapon banks, crew quarters, and command systems. What came back instead left them whispering in confusion. The power levels were wrong. At first, the sensors reported a steady pulse, the kind any warship would have. But as they dug deeper, the numbers began to rise, layer after layer, as though the ship carried hidden sources of energy buried beneath false signals. The warship seemed to breathe, its system shifting and hiding as if it knew it was being examined. The alien commander narrowed his eyes, watching the strange data scroll across the screens. His crew looked at him for guidance, but he said nothing. He only gestured for the scans to continue. The readings grew stranger still. Where ordinary ships had storage bays, this one had dense fields of shielding. Where ordinary vessels carried reactors, this one carried cores that bent space around them. Its hull was laced with strange circuits, twisting in patterns that no alien engineer could understand. And beneath it all, there was a deep, steady signal, like a heartbeat, that resonated through the alien sensors. The crew began to whisper louder now. Some said the humans had found alien technology and stolen it. Others claimed it was a trick, a disguise meant to scare them. But the commander was not convinced. His long years in battle had taught him the difference between deception and truth. What he saw now was not a trick. It was something worse. Outside, the warship drifted slowly, its shadow stretching across the void. Its engines glowed faintly like embers waiting to burst into flame. Smaller drones floated around it, silent and watchful, as if guarding the ship from any intruder. The aliens pushed their scans further, breaking through each layer of defense the warship presented. But each time they thought they had reached the heart of the ship, another wall appeared, another barrier of signals and encryption. It was as though the vessel was alive, resisting them, adapting to their intrusion. The commander's second officer turned, his voice low with unease. "Sir, this is not normal human design, it is something else." The commander did not answer. His gaze stayed fixed on the warship, and for the first time in many cycles he felt something he had not felt in years. Uncertainty. The silence on the bridge grew heavy. Every alien officer watched the screens, waiting for answers that never came. The ship before them looked human, but inside it was something different. Something built with secrets no one outside Earth should know. And then the first signal came. It was faint, almost hidden in the static, but the sensors picked it up clearly. A human code, a message simple and sharp, pulsed across their systems. "Do not look." The crew froze. Their scans had not only been detected, they had been answered. The commander felt a chill move through him, though he sat in the warmth of his command chair. He knew the humans were bold, but to send a warning like this in the middle of an enemy scan spoke of confidence. It spoke of power. The officers began to argue now, their voices sharp with fear. Some wanted to pull back, to stop the scans before it was too late. Others demanded they continue, convinced that the message was only a bluff. The commander raised his hand for silence, his eyes locked on the warship outside. The vessel floated there, silent and massive, its surface glowing faintly under the dying star. No weapons fired, no engines roared, yet its presence filled the aliens with unease. It was like standing before a predator, one that chose not to strike but only to watch. The commander gave the order. Continue. The scans pushed deeper. Systems hummed, lights flickered, and the data poured in. But with each layer, the readings grew more impossible, more terrifying. Power beyond calculation. Weapons that should not exist. Technology that bent the rules of physics. The crew whispered again, their voices full of fear. The commander stayed silent, but in his heart, he felt the truth forming. This was not a warship. It was something more. And whatever secrets it carried, the galaxy was not ready to face them. The first shocks, the alien commander sat still, his eyes locked on the shifting lights across the main screen. The warship remained silent in space, drifting slowly near the dim star, but its silence felt like a threat. Each scan brought new numbers, new signals, and none of them made sense. One officer leaned forward, his scaled hands trembling as he worked the controls. "Sir, I have broken through the outer shields," he whispered. "I can see the weapon banks now." The bridge grew tense. All eyes turned to the screen as the readings came into focus. The first shock hit them like a storm. Weapons, thousands of them. Every surface of the warship was lined with cannons, launchers, and energy blasters. Not the crude weapons the aliens had cataloged from earlier human fleets, but refined, efficient designs, machines built not for intimidation but for absolute destruction. The second officer hissed, his spines rising. "This is impossible. The humans cannot have this many systems on one hull." The crew murmured in fear, their voices low. The commander said nothing. He had seen many warships in his life, but never one like this. The readings showed weapons that could fire at every angle, every range, overlapping fields of death. No weak spots, no blind points. A fleet could surround this ship and it would still fight in every direction. And worse still, the power feeds. The ship did not rely on one reactor or two, but many, hidden deep inside layers of armor. Each one pulsed with energy strong enough to power a city. Together they formed a storm of fire waiting to be unleashed. The commander's chest tightened. He looked at the readings again, certain his eyes deceived him. "How does one vessel carry so much power?" he muttered. The answer did not come. Only more signals, more shadows of the truth. Another officer adjusted his console. "Sir, there is more. Look here." The screen shifted again, and the scans revealed deeper levels inside the hull. The bridge fell silent. The warship did not have crew quarters as expected. Instead, it had entire decks lined with strange chambers, sealed units that glowed with faint light. The scans reached closer and the details sharpened. Inside the chambers were human forms, soldiers, floating in stasis. Thousands of them. Not ordinary soldiers, but enhanced ones. Their bodies were larger, their organs reinforced with machines. Their veins glowed faintly with synthetic energy, as though something inside them was alive and burning. The first officer's voice cracked. "They are building an army inside the ship itself." Gasps rippled through the crew. The aliens had always believed humans fought with numbers, with crude courage and reckless bravery. But this was different. These were not ordinary humans. These were warriors designed for war beyond normal limits, hidden away until the time came to wake them. The commander's jaw tightened. He had fought many enemies, but none that prepared like this. The thought gnawed at him. How many of these ships existed? If this was only one, how many more waited in silence across the stars? A cold shiver passed through the crew. Some officers whispered that the humans had been hiding their true weapons all along, waiting for the galaxy to underestimate them. Others whispered of something darker, that maybe humans had not built this ship alone. And then the second shock came. The warship moved. Not much, only a slow shift in its position, but enough to make the alien fleet stir in panic. Engines flared faintly along its hull, glowing red for a heartbeat before dimming again. The commander gripped his chair. "Hold position," he ordered, though his voice was heavier now. On the sensors, the warship's systems came alive. Its weapons powered in silence, their energy levels rising without a sound. Its shielding thickened, pulsing with light that rippled across its surface like a second skin. The crew scrambled to adjust their scanners, but every attempt was met with resistance. It was as if the ship itself was fighting back, refusing to be understood. Then came the third shock. Another message. This time it was stronger, flooding every alien screen with sharp human code. It burned into their systems, impossible to block, impossible to erase. Last warning, leave. The bridge froze. Officers turned to their commander, fear in their eyes. To be warned once was strange. To be warned twice meant something far worse. The commander's spines lowered as he sat in thought. His instincts told him to withdraw, to end the scans before something terrible happened. But pride was a heavy weight. To retreat now would mean weakness. It would mean that the humans had already won without firing a single shot. The crew waited, holding their breath. The commander gave his order. His voice was calm, but every word carried steel. "Push deeper. I want to see the heart of this vessel." The officers obeyed, though unease filled their movements. The scans pushed further, breaking through barriers that twisted like knots. Systems groaned, data rushed in, and the bridge filled with a storm of new information. And then, the final shock of the night. At the center of the warship, hidden behind walls of encryption and shielding, was not an engine, not a command deck, not even a captain. It was something else, something alive. The screen flickered, and for a brief second, the aliens saw it, a core of light beating like a heart, pulsing with human code and artificial thought. It was not only a machine. It was not only human. It was both, fused into one. The commander leaned forward, his voice breaking for the first time in many years. What have the humans created? The crew had no answer. Only silence filled the bridge, and outside the warship waited, its shadow stretching across the void like the hand of something greater than any of them could imagine. Fear spreads. The alien fleet hung in silence. Dozens of ships orbited the human vessel at a careful distance, their engines dim, their weapons trembling on the edge of readiness. No one dared to fire, not yet. The warship had not attacked, but its presence was more threatening than any barrage of missiles. On the bridge of the lead cruiser, the commander sat frozen. His dark eyes stared at the data still streaming across the screens. A living core. Human soldiers sleeping in thousands. Weapons and engines that should not exist. It was too much, the officers whispered among themselves. Some wanted to retreat, to flee before the ship awoke fully. Others demanded to strike now while it still drifted. But none of them raised their voices too high. The warship seemed to listen. Every word felt dangerous. The commander lifted one hand slowly, commanding silence. His voice was low, heavy with unease. "Stabilize the scanners. We are not finished." The crew hesitated, but they obeyed. New beams of energy cut into the vessel, breaking through layers of defense. What they saw only deepened their fear. First came the encrypted patterns. The screens filled with shapes and codes, not random but deliberate. Human language mixed with machine thought, woven together like threads of a single mind. The codes pulsed with rhythm, alive, answering their intrusion with whispers too fast to follow. One officer clutched his head as the signals grew stronger. His ears rang, his vision blurred. He gasped, "It is inside my mind." Others recoiled in panic, shutting down their stations. The commander barked for order, but he too felt the chill at the back of his skull. The ship was not only resisting the scans, it was reaching back. Then came the images. The consoles flashed scenes not recorded by the scanners, but forced into them. Fleets burning in silence, entire worlds turning dark. Human soldiers standing in lines, their eyes glowing with cold fire. Great machines rising from Earth, stretching their wings toward the stars. The crew watched in horror, their jaws trembling. Were these visions real or were they warnings? The answer did not matter. The fear was enough. One young officer rose from his seat, his body shaking. "Commander, we cannot continue. This is not a ship, it is a weapon of terror. It wants us to see. It wants us afraid." The commander glared at him, but deep inside he knew the officer spoke the truth. The humans had built something more than metal and circuits. They had built a shadow that could crawl into the minds of enemies and leave them broken before a battle even began, and still the scans pressed deeper. The next revelation was worse than all before. Hidden under the ship's weapons and soldiers were vast chambers sealed with thick shields. The sensors strained to see inside, breaking one layer after another until the readings burst free. The chambers were not for crew. They were not for cargo. They were for seeds. Thousands of pods, each carrying strange machines and human designs, lay dormant. They were colonization seeds, engines to build fortresses, factories, entire armies on any world they touched. The warship was not only a fighter, it was a carrier of war, able to create more war wherever it traveled. The commander's heart sank. He had fought humans before. He had seen their colonies, their fragile ships, their stubborn courage. But he had never seen this. If even one warship like this reached enemy space, it could build an entire fleet on its own. The second officer turned pale, his scales fading. His voice was a whisper. If this is only one ship, then Earth holds a nightmare we cannot face. The words spread through the crew like poison. Fear thickened in the air. Officers looked to each other with wide, trembling eyes. Some stepped back from their stations, unable to continue. Others reached for their weapons as if a human soldier might step out of the shadows at any moment. And then the warship stirred again. Lights ran along its surface, slow and cold like veins filling with blood. Its engines pulsed once, casting a glow across the alien ships. The hull groaned, the sound echoing through the vacuum and vibrations their sensors could not ignore. The crew flinched. One shouted, "It knows! It knows we are here." The commander stood, his claws gripping the edge of his chair. His pride and his fear clashed within him. Retreat would save lives, but it would also spread panic across the empire. Attack would risk everything, but at least it would show defiance. He did not know which choice was worse. Before he could decide, the ship spoke again, not in symbols this time, but in words, clear and sharp across their comms. A human voice, cold and without mercy. "You should not have come this far." The bridge fell into silence. No one moved, no one breathed. The voice echoed through their bones, not loud but heavy, as if carried by the weight of centuries. One officer whispered, almost praying, "We are already dead." The commander stared at the warship, its shadow vast and endless against the dying star. For the first time in his life, he felt small. The galaxy had always believed humans were reckless, fragile, easy to measure. But here, in the silence of this ship, he realized the truth. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not simple. Humanity was preparing for something far greater than war with aliens, and the galaxy was not ready. The revelation. The alien fleet drifted in tense silence. Not a word was spoken on the commander's bridge, yet the fear was alive, thick and heavy, pressing down on every soul. The warship hung before them like a phantom, its vast hull dimly lit by the dying star. It did not move, yet it felt alive. It did not fire, yet it held the power to silence the galaxy with its presence alone. The commander's eyes burned as he stared at the screen. His mind demanded answers, but every answer so far had only led to darker questions. The weapons, the soldiers in stasis, the colonization seeds, all of it was terrifying enough. But the strange human voice, the living signals, the warning carved into their systems, those were worse. He leaned forward slowly. His voice was steady, but his claws tapped against the metal arm of his chair. "Push deeper. We will find the truth." The crew obeyed, though their hands trembled. The scanners hummed louder, forcing beams into the heart of the ship. Barriers cracked, encryption shattered, and hidden layers peeled away. Each layer revealed something stranger, something less like a machine and more like a living mind. The ship's core pulsed on the screen, alive with light, shifting in rhythms that matched no known reactor. At first it seemed like energy, pure power locked inside a cage of metal. But then it shifted and the crew saw more. The light was not random. It moved like thought. It pulsed like memory. It beat like a heart, one officer gasped. His scales glistened with sweat. "It is alive," he whispered. "The ship is alive." The commander's jaw tightened. He had seen sentient machines before, primitive, predictable, bound by rules. This was not the same. The reading showed something fused, something human and machine together. Something new. The voice returned, low and steady, carried through their comms as though it came from the walls themselves. "You dig too deep." The crew froze. The voice was calm, almost quiet, but it filled the bridge with dread. It was not a warning now. It was a judgment. One young officer dropped his console and stepped back, shaking his head. "It hears us. It feels us. It is watching." The commander did not move. His pride would not allow retreat. He gestured again. "Continue." The scans pushed harder and the truth unfolded. The warship's core was not a reactor. It was not fuel. It was memory. The screens flickered with data and then with images, human images. Memories of battlefields where humans fought not only aliens but forces darker, stranger, things not of the known galaxy. Vast shadows. They were not building ships only to fight alien empires. They were building ships to fight something worse, something waiting in the dark, something that terrified even them. The second officer's voice cracked. "This is not a warship for us. It is a shield." A warning, the crew muttered in fear. If this vessel was only one piece of humanity's hidden arsenal, what lay waiting on Earth? What kind of enemy required such weapons, such soldiers, such living machines? And then the last layer fell. The scans broke through the final shield and the warship revealed its secret. In the very heart of the ship, inside the pulsing core, was not only human memory. It was a human presence, a mind frozen yet awake, silent yet listening. The crew watched in horror as the sensors captured it. A single human figure, suspended within a chamber of light, wires and machines bound to their body, their eyes closed. Their heartbeat merged with the ship itself. This was the captain, not a commander of flesh and blood, but a human who had given up everything to become the vessel. Their thoughts powered its systems. Their memories guided its weapons, their will burned at its core. They were no longer human alone. They were warship. The officers recoiled in silence. One whispered, "They sacrificed themselves to become this." The commander's claws shook as he stared. He had always believed humans reckless, desperate, too willing to throw away their lives in battle. But this was something else. This was not recklessness. This was devotion. This was transformation. The warship was not only alive, it was human will made into steel. The voice came again, clearer now, steady as stone. "We are not ready for you, and you are not ready for us." The bridge fell into silence. Not one officer dared to breathe too loud. The commander sat frozen, his mind torn between fear and awe. He understood now. Humanity had not been racing to keep up with the galaxy. They had been racing to prepare for something greater, something worse than any empire of stars. And this ship was their proof. The truth spread across the alien fleet like fire. Messages ran from ship to ship, voices trembling, officers pale. Fear spread like a wave, but so did something else. Respect. For the first time in memory, the aliens saw humans not as reckless creatures, not as children of a young world, but as something far older in spirit. A species that looked into the dark of the galaxy and chose not to hide but to prepare. The commander whispered to himself, though his voice was heard by all. "If this is only one ship, then Earth holds an empire none of us can face." Outside, the warship glowed with silent power. It did not attack. It did not move. It only drifted, watching, waiting as though it had already won. And in that silence, the galaxy changed. The aftermath and cliffhanger, the bridge was silent. No one spoke, no one dared to move. The alien crew stared at the image on their screens, the human figure suspended in light, bound to the living machine, their mind fused with steel and memory. The warship was no longer only a ship. It was a human soul carried into eternity, a weapon that thought, remembered, and judged. The commander sat rigid in his chair. His spines lay flat against his back, his eyes dark with fear he could not hide. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to flee this cursed place and never return. But his pride held him still. He could not let his crew see him break. Outside, the warship stirred. The lights across its surface brightened, running like rivers along the armored hull. Its engines pulsed with a deep, fiery glow, shaking the void with their power. Slowly, the massive vessel turned, its shadow stretching across the alien fleet. On the bridge, alarms wailed. Officers scrambled at their consoles, their voices panicked. "Weapons are powering!
Shields are rising!"
It is preparing to fire." The commander's claws dug into his chair. His mouth was dry, his chest heavy. He opened his mouth to give the order, to retreat, to save his fleet before they were burned from the stars. And then the voice returned. It was no longer faint. It was strong, filling every system, every console, every corner of their ships. The human voice was calm, but it carried the weight of doom. "You should not have looked." The words froze the bridge in silence. The crew stared at their commander, waiting for his choice, waiting for death. But the warship did not fire. Instead, its weapons dimmed. The glowing cannons fell silent. The energy along its hull faded to a dark shimmer. The engines burned brighter, not with the fire of attack, but with the glow of departure. One officer gasped, "It is leaving." The commander's heart pounded as he watched. The warship angled away, its massive body turning with slow grace. Its engines flared, burning like suns, and then it moved, faster than their eyes could follow, faster than their scanners could lock. In a heartbeat it was gone, swallowed by the darkness of hyperspace. The alien fleet floated alone, left in silence. No battle had been fought. No shot had been fired. Yet every ship felt as though it had already lost. The commander rose from his chair. His legs were heavy, his voice low. "Record everything. Every detail. The Empire must see this." His crew obeyed, but their faces were pale, their eyes wide. They knew the truth as well as he did. What they had seen was not meant for them. The humans had shown them only because they had forced their way inside. And the warning was clear. Never look again. The commander's second officer leaned close, his voice trembling. "Sir, what do we tell them?" "What do we tell the Empire?" The commander stared at the empty space where the warship had vanished. His claws flexed, his chest ached. He whispered words that carried across the silent bridge. "We tell them the humans are not what we thought. We tell them they are not building ships for us. They are building them for something worse. And we tell them, we are not ready." The crew lowered their eyes, the weight of his words pressing into their bones. Fear spread like fire through the fleet. For the first time, the great alien empire did not feel like a ruler of the stars. It felt like prey. The silence stretched long, heavy, endless. And then, as if to carve the truth deeper, a final signal flashed across their systems. A human message, short, simple, cold. This was only the beginning. The bridge went still. The crew held their breath, waiting for the meaning to sink in. The commander closed his eyes, his mind heavy with the thought. If that was only the beginning, what would come next? The galaxy had always believed it was the master of humanity. But now the galaxy knew the truth. Humanity was no longer a reckless child among the stars. It was something else, something that stared into the dark and chose to prepare when no one else dared. The warship had left, but its shadow remained. And in that shadow, fear spread from ship to ship, from officer to officer, until it reached beyond the fleet, beyond the system, beyond the empire itself. Across the stars, the story would spread. The humans had built something no one could understand, something no one could face. And if this was only one warship, then Earth itself was a secret the galaxy was not ready to see. The commander sat in silence, his voice little more than a whisper.